really, and I think you kind of you hit the nail on the head with I don't know what reaction they wanted or what reaction they expected. Well, where to begin? We've not been gone long, but it's all been going off. Chaos in Napoli. People being more upset about trees being chopped down than necks in the northeast. There is a lot to be talking about. As always, my name is Rory. Welcome to the Anglo-Italian pod, and I'm joined by my very good friend
Adam. Hey Rory, it's certainly been the eventful kind of scene, should we say, in Italy, and especially Serie A. We kind of had the good, the bad, and the ugly. And yeah, I'm sure we'll be talking a lot of all three when we discuss this week's pod. But more importantly, mate, how are you doing?
I am pretty good. Yeah, class is kicking off fully, but I walked into work today and my boss was like, oh, do you know that class late on a Friday tomorrow is cancelled? I was like, oh, yes, get
beautiful.
in. So I got Friday off. I'm working Saturday morning, but I'm ignoring that for now. Friday off, so a nice little bonus. How are you doing, man? You good?
Yeah, keeping well. Been a very long day. I've been in London and commuting back as well. So yeah, very long day. But I do look forward to the weekends. Get to see my beloved Wycombe Wanderers and take the boy again. So it'll be. He doesn't know too much about it. He's just under the impression that I might be taking him this weekend. So
Nice.
yeah, cannot wait to see his little face when we turn up at Adams Park. But yes, Rory, we should dive into Serie A because not only have we got the Osimhen story, but we've got a lot of fixtures that did take place. We've got Leicester versus Juventus to cover. We've got Inter losing for the very first time in the league. And then, yeah, Milan back to winning ways against Calgary. But that's only a summary of some of the games, isn't it? Because there's been some hatful of amazing goals along the way as well.
There really has a lot of teams getting up, picking up key points, and of course, keeping us entertained through the week. We are also going to be talking Carabao Cup action, of course, with a few headlines there. And then, of course, we will finish with my turn to take on the Mastermind quiz. Exciting times. But guys, we're going to take a very short break, and we will see you on the other side.
My name is Massimo Morales, and you are listening to Anglo-Italian podcast.
Ciao, benvenuti, come stai? Welcome to the Serie A section, where unfortunately we have to start with off-the-field antics, when it all, within 0.5 seconds, Napoli went from everyone's second favourite team to everybody's second most hated team, behind Juventus, of course, as always. As the TikTok admin person, unless you've been living under a rock, you know what we're going to be discussing. The TikTok admin decides to set fire to what was left of the legacy of Napoli's Scudetto win. De Laurentiis has done his best to set fire to most of it, but the admins made sure to just finish it off. So I'm sure you've all seen the videos. If we just talk about the videos themselves and then the reaction.
Sure.
The first one is bizarre. Regular listeners will know, I know nothing about TikTok. I don't use it. I don't know what it is. I don't know what the trends are on it. I know that you use audio from somewhere else and put it to something else, and that's kind of a thing. And that's what they did there, like this boy complaining or a little high-pitched voice complaining about something. The one that really upset people, obviously, more was the one with the term coconut, which is a fairly well-known racist term used towards people. And Adam, what were your first reactions when you saw the video? Because at first I just couldn't quite comprehend what I was seeing.
Yeah, I'm very much like you. I was, I suppose, taken aback by how naive they could have been, like not reading the room in terms of, if we put this out, what kind of reaction are we anticipating? And whilst this TikTok guy or social media guy at Napoli has got a bit of a history, not just at poking fun at Osimhen, but obviously at other players and doing these radical kind of TikTok. It's just strange that there wasn't a kind of concept of there could be some misconceptions, connotations if this is shown to the World Wide Web, and people of all different nations can see this being portrayed, and it doesn't help with that perception of Italians being kind of considered as like being naive to the racist elements of stuff. And obviously reaction we will talk about, I'm sure, Rory, but also just from an Italian point of view as well, the kind of perception that this is somehow acceptable and, it's just poking fun and, they didn't mean it in that way. And obviously we'll talk about also the statement that has come out this evening as well, and not really being an apologetic one.
Yeah.
But it was bizarre. It was bizarre.
It was really, and I think you hit the nail on the head with, I don't know what reaction they wanted or what reaction they expected, because I think obviously we've seen football clubs banter other teams, not even other players, but other teams like, I don't know, Brighton's admin. If you lose to them, they just absolutely rinse you the next week.
Wolves did it classically.
The
with
Wolves
Forest,
admin have done it really well.
Yeah.
And like, we love that, if you know what I mean. It's like keeps the banter and the rivalry between teams. But I don't understand what possible reason you would have for picking on any player that plays for your team beyond anything, just a nameless employee of your of your company, why you would do that. So I don't know what the reaction was they expected or wanted. And then you get to the point that it was just incredibly lazy racism. And the reaction has been in Italy exactly what I expected. Now, what I'm about to say might upset some Italians, but I've lived here for 6 years now, and I find that whenever I meet a person, usually a bloke, because usually it's blokes, a timer is started, right? And you don't know when it's going to happen. You don't know if it's going to be within an hour, within 6 years, within a month, but a timer is started, and at some point they will say something racist. At some point, they will say something that is either aggressively racist or that kind of ignorant racist, right? And both are as bad as each other, right? But every Italian person I've met, or nearly every Italian person I've met, this has happened.
Right.
And I think what happens when these incidents occur is, and it's what's happened with this journalist, and we're going to try to say what she says as well, is, but it was a joke. Why are you taking it so seriously? Like, and they shift the blame onto the person of like, well, no, but if you take it seriously, that's not my fault. That's not how I meant it. And it's like the victim blaming kind of thing. And this is the reaction that I've seen in general in Italy. Now, I do also have to say, a lot of people have been rightfully shocked. A lot of people said this is disgusting. A lot of Napoli fans have come out and said, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
But I think maybe the focus is more on the fact that they've done it to their own player than the fact of it being racist. I think the focus has maybe shifted more towards why would you do it to your own player, not why would you say something racist. So that's the general vibe and reaction I've got from it. Obviously, the reaction internationally has been much more severe. And there's one thing I wanted to say on that as well. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter and online who want Osimhen to play for their club, of course, who have now decided that this was Napoli fans who did this, and Napoli fans are chasing them out of the club, and Napoli fans are being racist, and Napoli fans, like, look, we all know there's racist incidents in the crowd in every stadium in Italy. I'm not saying Napoli fans are saints. I'm not saying any fans are saints. But I'm saying in this particular case, this is not Napoli fans. No. This is one bloke or one person who's tweeted these videos, who's posted these videos and caused this reaction. I feel like Napoli fans are getting tarred with that brush, and I don't think it's fair, because I think also Neapolitans and Napoli fans get battered a lot for things that other clubs do. But because it's Napoli, it's easier to kick them. So I think it's something I've been quite aware of and something that's annoyed me. I don't know how you feel about that. I feel like I've been talking a while.
Yeah, massively. I agree with you, because the irony was I saw a lot of Chelsea fans have a dig at Napoli fans, and I was like, it's almost like talking to water. You've got a history of something very similar to an extent.
To a large extent.
Yeah, exactly. You've got a history of it as well. But it was disappointing that Napoli fans have been kind of tarnished under this kind of action. But I think it also alludes to the fact that Napoli as a club haven't done enough to kind of, dismiss this behaviour. They haven't acted swiftly. De Laurentiis, again, in typical fashion, hasn't really apologised. And although he says, we rejected a huge bid for you. That shows you why we kind of consider you as part of the furniture. You know, you are part of our team. This is why we wouldn't want to let you go. But I think this whole episode is just going to end in tatters, Rory. It feels like inevitably he'll probably ask for a transfer, and they'll probably get less than they probably anticipated. I know De Laurentiis is a very hard line, but you're going to have a player there who just will say, listen, I will play on until I get transferred, but I will want to leave. You've got to let me leave.
Well, let's look at the statement itself. I'll just read the statement as it is, and then we can kind of say what our issues are with it and how we think Osimhen should react. But Calcio Napoli, wishing to avoid any exploitation of the issue, point out that we never wanted to offend or mock Victor Osimhen, who is a treasure of this club. As proof of that, during the summer, as you said, training retreat, the club firmly rebuffed every offer that was received for the striker's transfer abroad. Social media, in particular TikTok, has always used an expressive form of language with a light heart and creativity, without wanting to, as in the case of Osimhen as protagonist, have any intention of insult or derision. In any case, if Victor perceived any offence towards him, this was not what the club intended. Now, my biggest issue is when I have students in class and they do something wrong, and if they say, I'm sorry if, that's not an apology. It's not an apology. No. You say, I'm sorry that, because you're accepting that you've done something wrong. Now, they didn't even say, I'm sorry here. There wasn't even the word apology. We would like to apologize. But they're saying if he perceived, right, his perception, not what we've said, if his perception is that this is an upsetting thing, then okay, fine. Like, there's not actually that apology there. And again, shifting it onto, well, it's his problem because he perceived it as a negative thing. I think it's very emblematic of De Laurentiis and of football authorities in general. I'm not even just going to say Italian football at this point, because let's not pretend that, like, English football or any other FA has done anything to battle racism or anything. But it's very emblematic of the problem and what you'd expect. But for Victor Osimhen, I think he has to be looking at the exit door now, really. I think it's all but confirmed that he's looking at the exit door. This is going to cost them financially. The interesting thing is, if he takes them to court, which it looks like he's going to do, it could be a breach of contract, and therefore he leaves on a free. And they get no money because the club have breached the contract. So then he goes to wherever
for free.
Imagine the signing on fee for that lad. He goes wherever for absolutely nothing. And I think at this point, like, Napoli fans they were already pretty sick of De Laurentiis. They're like, you know, you've won a Scudetto, but they've never really liked him. Even though and we've talked about it before, he took them from Serie D to Serie A, and it's this fairy tale story, they've won Scudetto. But the whole time, there's never been that love. There's never been that connection. He's not from Naples, he's from Rome, and there's never been that. He's never tried to endear himself to the fans. So there's never been, and this just kind of feels like one of maybe a last straw, like that there could be protests, there could be kind of, and when the ultras there protest, you're going to know about it. It's not going to be quiet. So I think it'll be interesting to see where this goes. As I said in the intro, any legacy of the Scudetto is now gone now, right?
Yeah, massively. I think it's burned through different aspects as well. It's not just this incident, but obviously, it's just the whole dealing with it. It's just so frustrating because you saw last season, you're thinking, don't dismantle this. Don't
let it fall apart.
Don't let it happen. And for some stupid reason, like you say, De Laurentiis has his ego. This bloody ego gets in the way of things. And it's ruining what should be a special moment for the club's history, you know, winning this for the very first time. They created, you know, players into icons there as well. Kvaratskhelia, you know, the murals of Osimhen being surrounded by Napoli's fans, and, you know, they've taken him to his heart. You know, they've made the masks, you know, boys are dressed up in his kit and they love it. You know, they love him. I remember there was that cake that's famously made down there as well.
Yeah, they were everywhere, right?
You know, they adore him. So it's going to be almost bittersweet for Osimhen, because I feel like right now he knows it's not not the fans. He knows it's the club, and it's just so bonkers, mate. I mean, I feel for the guy because you saw the scenes afterwards when he's walking to training the next day and he kind of blanks the manager Garcia. The players are waiting there for him, barely acknowledges them. You could see even a match against Udinese, there is that kind of aura about him that he's pissed off.
Oh,
he's so pissed off, but he's doing a job, and it goes back to that point around the Italian journalist, should we say, that her comments were absolutely out of order because Osimhen has obviously deleted pictures on his Instagram account of the Napoli players, etc. And she's, and I won't spoil it. You can go into detail, but essentially,
I need to find the bloody quote now.
She has instigated that somehow by Osimhen deleting these images off his Instagram account, that he's not being a big man, he's not being professional. And yeah, Rory, hopefully you found it now and you can read it.
Well, she's since issued an apology to the entirety of Nigeria. But so I've got the apology for the comment, but her comment was basically saying that why would you delete the pictures from your profile? This is the club, not the fans. And she finishes it with like, this will teach us to fall in love with a player. Only the shirt. So she's kind of saying like, showing no sympathy towards him, blaming him for like reacting to what was a personal attack. And then now she's released a statement saying, "Dear Nigeria, I'm a showgirl. I'm a showgirl who also works in a TV program related to football. In my comment and post, I did in reference to the Nigerian football player Victor Osimhen. I didn't want to be offensive, but was my only point of view and had to be understood as a personal suggestion. I love Africa. Good.
Of course.
And I've always appreciated their talents and moreover the beautiful values in terms of friendship and positivity they have. Nowadays are so full of bad news, so let's spread love and peace. Hugs to you all." The I love Africa seems such a that feels like the next thing that Infantino was going to say after, today I feel
I don't know if it's that or it's just the image she also used, which couldn't be further from like Sam Fox, like page 3 son, while you're doing it at the same time.
That's the showgirl bit, I imagine, rather than the that's the showgirl.
Is that
bit.
The way of groveling and getting apologies and then forgetting about the whole situation, right?
Get those likes. Likes. But yeah, so lots of people talking about it. Not a lot of sense coming out of it. I imagine Victor Osimhen will keep very quiet. I imagine we won't hear anything from him or his representatives until they've had their day in court. But one to keep an eye on. I just think for him as well, like obviously, like the last thing on it, I think maybe is that Italy is obviously so publicly a country that it has issues with racism, and black players in the past, including Balotelli, have turned around and said to black players, "Don't play in Italy. It's the only way they're going to learn. Like the only way we can teach them is if we don't play in Italy." So I think a lot of black players come to Italy, and especially with Osimhen, he might have felt like, and we talked about it, he was making a big difference in Naples and making a big difference in Italy in general, being this like icon and like for younger kids. And it sounds a bit weird coming from a UK thing where this happened for us in the 90s or the 80s where there was those bridges built. But that's happening now. And I think for Osimhen to feel like, and this is all me speculating, right? I don't know how he feels, but I imagine you feel like you're making progress. You feel like you've managed to make a home in this city and you're doing good. And then the club itself attacks you and they use your skin color against you. I just feel like it must be the most like humiliating and demoralizing thing of like, why did I even bother? I should have just listened and gone to England. I should have just gone to Germany or whatever. Like, and I just feel like it would just add a little bit extra to him of just, I thought I was making a difference and maybe he hasn't, but he has. It's just that idiot at the club, whoever it is.
Yeah, massively.
And whoever they are, they're going to need to be put into witness protection, I imagine.
Oh, I could imagine, yeah.
They are going to be hunted in Naples once they find out who it is.
Just quickly to wrap it up as well, sorry, that statement as well alluded to TikTok as that's notorious behaviour. Yeah. I'm afraid it's not notorious behaviour. No. That is not what other clubs put out as their content. And I'm afraid Napoli are just digging a bigger hole for themselves by stating that somehow this is an acceptable form of language or connotations in that respect. Because I'm sorry, but whilst Rory, you don't watch TikToks, I unfortunately have them as part of our account, and I don't come across those kind of content. And when we have those kind of content, it's showing real life if it happens. So I'm afraid that is bullshit, and I'm sorry, but Napoli, you really screwed yourselves up here.
Yeah. Well, it's all dust now. It's all ruined. But despite all that noise in the background, there was still a game happening.
Yes.
And Napoli ran out pretty comfortable winners against Udinese, 4-1. Of course, Osimhen getting a goal. That was a very angry finish, a very angry celebration. His teammates looked really happy for him. I think they understand what he's going through, and they're like not taking it personally that he's having a day, if you know what I mean. But they were all super happy for him that he scored. But also, I wanted to talk about Kvara. Kvaratskhelia gets his first goal of the season and an assist. And Adam, what a goal. We saw, he's back. What a finish.
Maybe this was kind of the event where he was allowed to just get that frustration out of his system. But what a beautiful little chip over Silvestri in goal.
It was incredible.
And just what a finish. Absolutely insane. I mean, I thought Zielinski for his play to Osimhen was incredible, but then Kvara hitting the post twice. Then you had that little bit of magic. I mean, the guy looks like he was back to his very best, and it was just, we've been crying out for it. But, we'll go into it in a bit more detail shortly, but I will put that out there and say, does this change the Garcia project? Does this kind of be the light bulb moment to save his career now, potentially, because of, the attention's not on him now? Yeah. He's managed to get that win for once.
Definitely the case.
Does this change the kind of, it's us against them, like as in it's us against the officials at the club?
Yeah.
We are going to prove we are a good team now.
I think you could be right. I think it could be that. Oh, is that what they think of us? If you've seen what the owners think of us, let's show them what we actually are. I think that could be a massive thing of that. I think with Kvara, his performances haven't been bad. His performances have been very good. He's just not got that goal. He's been
frustrated.
He should have a few more assists than he has, which aren't strictly his fault that they don't get put in the back of the net. So I think his performances haven't been that bad. But it's really great to see him. That chip, it reminded me of something Messi would do.
Yeah.
The second I saw it, I was like, that's Lionel Messi all over. The only other player I've seen who would do that is Lionel Messi. The chip over the keeper to then run onto it. It was an incredible finish. Great to see him confident again. But I think you're right. The common enemy is kind of there now. And I think it was the first time we saw Napoli ruthless and driven and quick.
Yeah.
And really, really focused. The start of the season has felt quite unfocused and quite dawdling and quite slow. And this performance felt a lot more efficient and kind of maybe getting back to last season in terms of just taking chances, creating chances.
Yeah.
So it was really good to see. Rudy Garcia will be very, very relieved that happened because the pressure was definitely piling up. I saw the names who was linked to it. I did see there was names mentioned. It'll come to me of who was going to replace him. So the rumors were getting pretty strong, but they were helped by Udinese.
Yes, unfortunately. Yeah.
Adam, I'm kind of super surprised about how they've started this season. They find themselves all the way down in 18th. They're one of the 3 teams remaining who are winless. They've got 3 draws and 3 defeats. Now, obviously, when you see a team with a lot of draws, you're thinking, okay, you're just lacking that one goal. You're close. You're close. You just can't quite finish games. But should Udinese be worried? Sotil was a manager we were /are very excited about.
Yeah, I think there is genuine kind of fears for Udinese this season now. It probably doesn't help, Rory, when you have a few of your biggest players who had the biggest impacts go to other clubs. So I'm talking about Udogie, who was on the cards. They knew about it for the best part of a year, but Beto being sold before the window as well, closing. that's kind of a big deal given he was the main source of goals for them. Obviously, they really did sign Pereira back to the club after he was technically released, so he hasn't had a proper pre-season with them. But this was always going to be the threat or the issue with Udinese is when you sell players, they kind of replace them with players that aren't tested, or they need a bit more game time before they kind of become the next best thing. And I don't know about you, but I do feel like when you look at the squad for Udinese, you haven't got anyone that kind of springs to mind as maybe being that next best player to come out of their squad. And I do worry about them. I mean, we've talked about Empoli, for example, being one of those potentially to struggle this season, but Udinese, they don't look like a team that is going to grab many wins this season. And that's probably a big worry given the infrastructure that is there. They probably need to be in Serie A. Do you think there's much hope for Sutil?
I think you're right with the departures definitely kind of shafted them. I think Beto is a massive miss. We saw how incredible he was for them and how important he was for them in an attacking sense. The only striker they've really brought in is Keenan Davies on loan. Keenan Davies from Aston Villa, who's an exciting young player again, youngish, but he's not really had any impact yet so far. They brought in Brenner as well, a young Brazilian striker, going to take him time to get into the squad, but he's come in at quite a bit of money, like 10 million.
And then you've got Lorenzo Luca as well, who they brought in from Ajax, who's got a reputation, right? But again,
I'm not sure if it's a good one, but he does have
comes
a
in with, well, let's put it this way, he comes in with that kind of Luca Toni vibes, even, should I say. Sorry, words weren't coming out. But one of the things we probably have to recognise is Delafeo is off injured. Now, he was the kind of spark, right? He is the spark for them. But again, you shouldn't be relying on just one player, right, Rory?
And I feel like it's weird because obviously Sotil, they had such a good season last season and it did fall off towards the end. Like I think their start of the season was insane, but their end of the season was really, really bad and they did not win many games. So I think it's kind of like, like the David Moyes effect when I was talking to Tom and he was like, West Ham haven't won a game in like a year or whatever. And you're like, what? And you're like, oh yeah, they get all their wins in the first 3 months and then just stop winning. And I feel like that kind of happened with Sotil and Udinese. So I feel like this slide might have been happening for a while. And now you're starting the season, it's just much more obvious. But the ray of light for them and how they managed to keep hold of him, like they have to send Samardžic's dad like a lot of hampers or something for him ruining that Inter deal because it was all but done. But they just didn't want to deal with his dad. His dad was a pain in the ass. And he's still at the club. And I think he is the one player that, like, he scores the best goal of that game. As good as Cavada's finish was, that run and 1-2 is just incredible. And the finish is insane. Like, he is that one player that can just do that and take a game by the scruff of the neck and be like, right, come on, we're doing this. So I think there's still enough, not just him, but there's still enough talent around that squad that they'll be fine. I just think for this season to not become absolutely nothing, they need to turn it around quite quickly because they could quickly just find themselves in 13th place for the rest of the season, if you know what I mean. Whereas it felt like last year there was something to build, something to kind of like a bit of progress. But then I also wouldn't be surprised that if they go 2 more games without winning a game, we know what the Pozzo family are like. He will be replaced pretty quickly.
Massively,
So I think do you think it would be harsh if they got rid of him?
No, because I think their second half of last season, the form massively dropped off, and we're talking about still having players like Udogie and Beto in the squad. So I do fear for Sutil. I know we kind of hyped him up a bit, maybe too much, Rory. But yeah, I do feel that if they don't get some wins on the board, then Sutil's like potential career at Udinese might be a threat. And yeah, like you say, the Pozzo family probably have a black book of names written down and they'll know who to replace him with. I mean, they've done it with Watford, so they'll just rotate who they've got at Watford and bring them across, right? So,
Javi Grazia or someone, right? He'll be the next one.
I fancy Chris Wilder personally, but I don't think that went down too well. But
maybe not. But a huge win for Napoli. That puts them right up in 5th place on 11 points, just keeping within touching distance of the rest of the pack. 4 points behind Inter, who, look at that for a smooth segue, who have lost their first game of the season. And who was it to, Adam? Everyone's favourite. They've now won.
Yes.
They've beaten Juventus, and now they have beaten Inter. They are just the opposite team. They're the upside down team. Teams at the top of the table, they will defeat with ease. Teams at the bottom, they will bend over and take their punishment. It is insane. But Sassuolo 2, Inter 1.
Yeah.
What were your first impressions of this game? Inter's performance, Sassuolo's performance?
Well deserved for Sassuolo in the end.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things when I was watching, in particular the second half, because I couldn't really watch much of this first half, but second half wise, it was a very lethargic performance by Inter. And even though you could argue maybe they should have had a few maybe decisions go their way, it didn't ruin the occasion, if that makes sense, because I think Sassuolo deserved this. They definitely deserved this. And I don't know what happened with Inter. Or whether they just took their foot off the gas and thought, it's Sassuolo rolling into town. We don't have to worry about them. But they really weren't at their A game, and they really did struggle, even to the point that when Lautaro was able to have those chances, he was scuffing them. He was like getting deflections, and it wasn't going to plan. So I said this when you mentioned it a few weeks ago about how, Inter looks set for the title as it was going, in terms of form guide. And I told you at the time, Inter have this little stroke about them where they screw up things and they make things harder for themselves. This kind of gives you evidence and gives hope to the other teams now. It opens it up now again. So Inzaghi, you can tell, was visibly frustrated on the sidelines. And you know what? They had the depth. So I do wonder whether they would have done anything differently if they had the older, more experienced pros. But that said, I still think they had enough quality on the day to overcome this Sassuolo side. And we have to talk about Berardi, won't we? We will talk about Berardi even, because what a hit, what an assist.
What a goal to start with.
I mean,
yeah.
This guy is just so incredible when he's on fire. But I think you're going to pose me the question of, why isn't he somewhere else, right?
Yeah, I find it interesting that no one's ever really taken that dive on him. Now, I know Sassuolo have always quoted quite a lot of money for him, because obviously he's like he's the jewel in the crown.
Yeah.
He's like, their best player by some distance.
Yeah.
And he's also their opportunity to get money, right? So I think the numbers that were always quoted, because was it Milan who was looking at him this year? It was like 60 million.
As well.
Inter were looking at him. They were saying 60, 65 million, which I think is actually pretty reasonable for a player of his ability. I think it's really fascinating that no one's really taken the dive. I don't know if it's because, and I think you said this off mic, maybe his consistency isn't quite there, and he's not really had that 20-goal season. He's not really had that 25-goal season. He's not had that outstanding season, but he's always been very, very good. And I just think maybe I don't know. He's not a big name. It's not like. Why do you think he's not moved on? Because there is no reason why he shouldn't be playing for Juventus. Why he shouldn't be playing for Inter. Sorry, Sassuolo fans, but he should be in the Champions League.
I think you've probably summed it up right. He's a 7 out of 10 player. On his day, he could be a 9. He could be a 10 out of 10 player. He can be your spark. He can be your inspiration, as we've seen in the last 2 games as well. But yeah, I think there is elements of his game that isn't kind of all-rounded in that sense. Sometimes he can go missing. And I think if people base it on his history, they kind of go, yes, he can be a match winner, but when we have him in our sides, we want him to be consistent all of the time. We want him to be that player all of the time. So I think, like you say, I'm surprised no one's actually taken a gamble on him, because he reminds me of those kind of experienced pros that play for a lower side that eventually gets nabbed up by those bigger sides and they bring him off the bench, to be that kind of inspiration. It feels like, I don't know about you, probably wrong analogy here, but when Gary McAllister moved from Coventry to Liverpool, and although he couldn't really run, he was still able to, kind of have that bit of quality about him. Maybe a Jari Litmanen, for example, when he came into the Premier League as well. So, the clever little twists and turns that he could manipulate defenders. He wasn't a goal scorer, right? But I could see very kind of similarities, because Berardi, on his day, yes, he can be one of the top goal scorers for Sassuolo, but for a side like a top side, I don't expect him to do that. I think he's more of a creative spark. And do you know what? I think Juventus was quoted as the team that he wanted to go to, and obviously the Sassuolo gave him and Juventus the deadline of the 17th of August, and there was no bid met. There was nothing there. So despite his best efforts of trying to move on, and the funny thing was, I remember listening to James Horncastle about it. He actually announced it in front of a Sassuolo fan event that he was going to Juventus. So he burned almost bridges there and then. And then he's had to kind of grovel to them, and he's doing it with these performances, right? They know what a quality player he is, but it's a weird situation.
They can't be angry with him. He's kept them in Serie A at many stages.
He could have moved earlier as well, right? He decided to stay at Sassuolo rather than go to Juventus earlier in his career. And I wonder if, I think we mentioned it on the pod a few weeks ago, you said this, I think maybe he regrets maybe not making the move just to be in the Champions League, in those European games. And, he got a taste for it with the Italian national side. He probably just feels he could have done that at a club stage as well, domestically, playing in those big games.
There is still time for him. He's not massively old. He's fine, and I think he will get the move. If he continues like this season, I think there's only so long that teams can't go out and buy him. And when someone does buy him, every other club that didn't is going to look really stupid. I think it's kind of like when who's the player I was thinking about? Fratesi, right? When Fratesi goes to Inter, I thought every other club who doesn't get him is going to go, God damn it, we should have got him.
Yeah.
Or Barella, we should have just paid the money, right? And I think when Berardi goes, every other club's going to go, frig, we should have just got him. We shouldn't have let them have it.
Verratti for Juventus, when they should have spent 250,000 from Pescara at the time, and then he goes obviously to PSG.
I'm personally happy they didn't do that, but yes. So I think an outstanding performance from him, an outstanding performance from Sassuolo. The problem for them, who is their next match? Because if it's against anyone below 10th, they're definitely not going to win it. They've got... No, wait, where's it gone? They have... I've lost them. Oh, Monza at home, so they're definitely losing that. That is definitely a win for Monza. But yeah, massive result for them. For Inter, I think it kind of... The performance against Empoli, we said, wasn't as good as it could have been, right? The 1-0 against them was not good enough. It should have been much more. And I feel like maybe there was a bit of a bleed from that performance into this of just that, because they created chances, but it was a very even game. But I feel like from the Empoli game, they didn't take their chances, and there was just more of that, in this game, just not that cutting edge. So, yeah, look, it's not the end of the world for Inter. You're not going to go unbeaten. I apologise, Interdisti, but you're still top of the table, if that helps.
Exactly.
And I'm sure it does. But from Inter, we are going to move on to towards the bottom of the table. We're going to go back down. Okay. We've talked about them, so why not? Let's talk about Empoli. They get a win. They get a goal. Yes. More importantly, they get a goal. They get a win. Yeah. And they beat Salernitana 1-0. Of course, it was Baldanzi who gets the goal. Who else? Incredibly exciting player. Him in that kind of wide number 10 role is super exciting to watch. I also like Male in the midfield. I'm a big fan of him. I've been impressed by him a lot. But they get the goal, 1-0 win, tight at the back. Impressive, right? I know it's Salernitana. We'll talk about them as well, but they've got that monkey off their back, so to speak.
They do. And I'm grateful that you corrected me on Monday's show when I was shouting Zanetti as the coach, and I'd missed it. I'd missed the fact that he'd actually left.
He was put out of his misery.
So Aurelio Adriazello is now back for his fourth spell at the club. And yeah, it's going to be interesting now to see if that was a maybe coaching philosophy that
Mhm.
was restricting Empoli from maybe progressing. And you know what normally happens on these occasions? It's just a new manager bounce. So the
Mhm.
question mark will be, can he continue this? Obviously, it all depends on the run going forward, but it's promising that they actually got a good win here against a fellow struggler, which is kind of deemed like almost 6 points in itself, Rory.
Yeah. Mhm.
And then
Massive.
we'll probably have to shift this attention now away from Empoli and talk about how bad a certain Paulo Sousa is doing now.
Before we do, I want
Go
to do a little bit of a bit on Andrea Toli. As you said, it's his fourth time in charge of the club, and I think he's very much just like a firm hand on the tiller kind of thing.
Roy Hodgson.
Yeah, exactly. As is often the case in Italy, you bring a manager back. In his 4 spells, he's averaged about 1.5 point a game. So I think that would be enough to definitely keep them in the division. So it's very much just okay, let's get this season out of the way and then we can find someone else. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, but I think we might see a bit more of a consistent and focused Empoli now, whereas the way it ended with Zanetti, with him not picking Baldanzi and stuff like that, and like not picking the biggest names or the best players, it only seemed like it was going one way. So maybe they can turn it around, but they're definitely in a relegation fight this year. It's just whether they'll survive it, I suppose. But for Salernitana, Adam, you warned us. I was hyping up Paulo Sousa so much after his incredible run with Salernitana last year.
Yep.
They are now way down there. They are one of the winless teams. They remain one of them. Drawn 3, lost 3. Again, just 1 goal away. I do still feel like they've got exciting attacking players, but they're just not getting those goals.
They're not. And Bula Di has dried up his kind of streak of form.
Unsurprisingly, he openly said he wanted to leave, right?
Yes,
he openly
to Wolves, obviously.
Yeah.
Don't mention it. Just say it loudly, right? But yeah, I suspect this is going to be the beginning of the end for Paulo Sousa. He has these kind of streaks where he seems to go on these really good runs that kind of inspire you, thinking you're going to push on. And I felt that with Salernitana. I thought, but then the business hasn't been that impressive during the summer window. Personally, I don't think it's been that great. I was surprised to see Ochoa back still in there, because originally that was only a loan spell until the end of the season.
He kept them in this game. He absolutely kept them in this game.
And that's the problem, I think, Rory. If you look at the kind of experience that they've got, yes, they've got Candarevis who scores wonder goals occasionally, but you need a bit more of a spark at the moment. And it feels like Salernitana are really being tight on the purse strings here. That you've got, there's a Polish youngster that Paulo Sousa has had to promote as a midfielder. He wasn't playing in this particular match, but Legowski, who's now supposedly on the cusp of being called up to the national team, doing quite well. But yeah, it's not enough. I don't think it's enough. You need kind of your more experienced pros, I think, about you. And as much as Candareva is an experienced pro, I think you need someone with more legs than Candareva as well. You need someone that's going to give you a bit of a spark and maybe take off the pressure on Diao and co. You need someone that's going to contribute the goals, and they just don't have that. I think the argument is probably last season that went under the radar because everyone was performing so well. Whereas now you're starting to feel it. And I don't know about you, but I feel like striker was a big thing. We took the piss out of Piontek for a reason, but they didn't really replace him, did they?
I want to stick up for Giovane Cabral, who's been brought in as the replacement for Piontek, right? He's quite 25 years old. Now, he's got 1 goal in the 5 games, so he scored his first goal in their last match. He's hit the crossbar an incredible amount of times. He kind of got... Do you remember when Tammy Abraham first turned up for Rome and he just kept hitting the bar, kept hitting the crossbar? Yeah. He's never quite right. I feel like this guy has been super unlucky. He's like really direct, really strong, really fast, like very intelligent with his runs. I think there is a player there. He just needs to calm down a little bit because some of his shots are a bit wild. So I think he's been very unlucky. Like even within this game, if you look at the statistics, like Salernitana had, like they both had like 14 shots. Like Salernitana's issue was having them on target, whereas Empoli managed to actually hit the target. So I feel like they weren't a million miles apart. It's just like cutting edge. So I think yeah, I don't know if we'll see Paulo Sousa for much longer, but I think the biggest issue for them is the fact that Dia, like they did so well to keep hold of him.
Yeah.
But then for his head to get turned so quickly, it's like your star player just instantly losing interest. I think that makes a massive difference. So I think that's kind of where we're seeing the problems come from. But I was really impressed with Ochoa. Like, the guy's just such a good goalkeeper. He just makes very good saves. I know he's a bit like, what's the word, eccentric.
Yes,
but
fine.
He does. He
suits this kind of scene, doesn't he? He should have been in Europe a lot sooner, right? And for some reason, I think in our minds he was in Europe, but we know he wasn't. If that makes sense, he's like
in my mind, he was in a cupboard until every World Cup came out. I did not know where he played.
But he was always supreme. He was always on form, right?
Exactly. Just turned up for Mexico and then hibernated for another 4 years. I didn't know where the guy was. But yeah, fantastic from him. Salernitana, that's a big loss. That's a big loss. But I don't know, would I be sad to see Sousa go? Not really. I'd be worried about who Salernitana would replace him with beyond David Nicola. Obviously. One last ride.
Bring him back.
Get him back.
Bring him back.
Him and Warnock. Get Warnock back at Sheffield, Nicola back at Salernitana. Get the old band back together. It'd be great. Should we leave that one there? I think we can leave that one there. And we can... Oh, my God. I've just seen the live score. No, the final score. We need to talk about this now.
Okay.
Genoa 4, Roma 1.
Oh.
That is an absolute old-fashioned paddling. Look at that. Goodmanson, Retegui, Thorsby, and Junior Macias getting the fourth goal.
Wow.
I did see the Retegui goals. A very, very nice finish. Roma have absolutely collapsed there. Genoa had 4 shots on target, 4 goals. Insane. Roma still need to replace their goalkeeper, right?
Yeah, and I was going to say, are we starting to see like the kind of beginnings of maybe Mourinho going into the hobo kind of feel? Because there's an interesting comment made on the Football Weekly podcast by Nicky Bandini about how it feels like they've almost kind of stressed themselves out. They've kind of did all they could last season just to get over the line and overperform to an extent. And now it feels like they're mentally drained. And it feels like Mourinho hasn't got many ideas. I did kind of allude to a bit of that when I was talking about the Torino match, whereby if it wasn't for the Lukaku goal, they really did struggle to get into the kind of, frame of the game. They couldn't really create much. And, players like Dybala went quiet, for example. There was just not a lot of inspiration. And when you consider the signings, I think we probably overhyped them again, Rory. It's just a curse of this pod, but we've overhyped them in the transfer window where they did some really good business. It feels like it's going to shit again. It doesn't look great. Why Mourinho hasn't addressed that goalkeeping position, I do not know. Patrizio is one of the worst performing goalkeepers in Serie A. I want to put my neck on the line and say over the last 2 seasons, I think he's probably been one of the worst.
There's a reason why when Jose Sarr came in at Wolves, he looked so much better instantly. Instantly, you're like, holy crap, Wolves have got a goalkeeper all of a sudden. And I always thought Rui Patrizio was fine, but I never got why they...
Average goalkeeper.
Why they bought him beyond the fact he's Portuguese. But I think that's the biggest issue, one of the biggest issues in the squad. Their only win this year is against that win against Empoli, right? They lost to Verona. They find themselves in 16th now. 1 win, 2 draws, 3 losses. Scored 13, thank you, Empoli. So take away the 7, take away 6 from that, and you're on what? 7. My maths is terrible. And they've conceded 11 in 6 games. You're averaging about 2 goals a game there. Absolutely terrible start from them. I think we will start to see Hobo Mourinho a little bit. I hope he kind of keeps it together because, like I said, I feel like he's really getting a home there at Roma. He is doing something. He's settled. And that squad still isn't bad. I think their business this summer was very clever. They've been unlucky with Aouar and the injury and stuff. But, I still feel like there's just not quite clicking.
And he's bought through younger players. That's always the stigma he gets, is that he doesn't bring in enough young players. And he's developed the likes of Zalewski, Bove, for example. He's pushed on this team. He's got them into European tournaments almost winning them stuff, right? He did win the obviously conference. He almost got them to win again the Europa. I mean, imagine that. That we
within
would
a
be talking
penalty
about
shootout,
them being
pretty
in
close.
Champions League, right? We'd be talking about them in Champions League right now. But yeah, I mean, like you say, if they can just address this goalkeeper, can they not just drop him and put a youth goalkeeper? I'm sure it's almost like when we were talking about Handanovic.
I don't know.
And
that works on Football Manager and FIFA. I don't know if it works in real life, man. Honestly, I don't know if it works in real life.
But yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's worth a try. I don't know, but I'm just noticing the time, so I think I'm going to wrap up the rest of Serie A super quickly. Juventus beat Lecce 1-0. The fun isn't quite over for Leicester, but it was a disappointing game. That
yes, very much.
Juventus, the goal coming from Arkadiusz Milik, of course, such a good signing for them since he's come in. Genuinely a very good signing. Lecce getting the harshest red card, I think, towards the end of the season. Towards the end of the game, Kaba being sent off. Ridiculous decision. We have Cagliari losing at home 3-1 to Milan. Goals from the most random collection of goal scorers of all time. Noah Okafor with his first goal for the club. Great to see that. Fikayo Tomori getting a goal. Love that. And then Ruben Loftus-Cheek with a banger getting his first goal for the club. He has had a very good start to life in Serie A. I'm absolutely loving it. Atalanta beat Verona 1-0 away. A beautiful goal from Cope Miners. He's starting to find the net a bit more recently, which is good. After a while, Lazio got back to winning ways, beating Torino 2-0. Vecino and Zaccagni with his first goal of the season. Frosinone drew with Fiorentina 1-1. Kadira didn't score, so I don't care. Nicolas Gonzalez got the goal for Fiorentina. And Monza and Bologna drew 0-0 with Salamakers being sent off for Bologna. Now, this, that is all the action in Serie A.
That is, yes.
So we're going to take a very quick break, and we're going to come back with a super quick Carabao Cup roundup.
Hi, I'm Phil Brown, and you're listening to the Anglo-Italian podcast.
And it's everybody's favourite energy drink time as we come into the Carabao Cup roundup. And can I just say, I love the Carabao Cup because you get to see all the young players. You get to see lots of exciting young players getting their starts. And it's just something a bit different, isn't it? Let's start with, where should we go? Manchester United beat Crystal Palace 3-0. Of course they did. Amrabat really shone in this game. Apparently, people very, very impressed with him. His work ethic is insane. Liverpool came from behind to beat Leicester 3-1. Did you see Szoboszlai's goal? Oh,
yes, what a goal. I think our previous guests, I've forgotten his name, but yes, he did say he was grateful to be in the presence of that goal. So, yes, beautiful.
It was an incredible hit. Arguably one of the signings of the season so far, Szoboszlai. He's absolutely loving life down in Merseyside, up in Merseyside. Depends where you are in the country, I suppose. Blackburn Rovers and Cardiff City, 5-2. Absolute goal fest. Andrew Moran. Now, remember the name. He is the next exciting player coming out of Brighton. He's on loan at Blackburn. He is Irish. I'm very excited. And he got 2 goals in this game, as well as Dylan Markandai, who I was really, really impressed with. Really pacey winger. Beautiful goal there as well. Cardiff, despite having a good start to the season in the Championship, I think they'll actually be relieved to go out and they can concentrate on their league campaign. West Ham squeak past Lincoln City 1-0 with a Souček goal. Adam, miracles have happened. Miracles happened midweek. Not only did Chelsea win a game, Nicholas Jackson scored, and he should have had 2. Incredible, right?
Wow. Incredible. Definitely incredible, especially when you consider what we kind of predicted would happen, right? So a nice little boost ahead of the fixture list that they've got in the league. But yeah, I still think they will still screw that up as well. So,
the frustrating thing for them,
usual.
The frustrating thing then is that he's got his confidence up and now he's got to miss a game because he's got too many yellow cards.
Too many
so he can't even take it straight into the next game, which is frustrating, I suppose. Bournemouth beat Stoke City 2-0. Fine. And I wanted to talk about the game I did want to talk about. Where is it? Ipswich 3, Wolverhampton 2. Now, Adam, everybody's talking about Kieran McKenna.
They are.
Ipswich up towards the top of the Championship, and now they've come from 2 goals down to knock out a Premier League team. It's insane.
Mm-hmm. They are a very exciting team, it's fair to say, Rory. Obviously, coming up from League One last season, Wycombe were obviously used to seeing them. And yeah, they look a cut above the rest. It'll be interesting to see if they can sustain this kind of current form at the moment. But they've got a number of individuals that are quite, on the eye, look very pretty. One player to keep on your tabs, Rory, because he's an Irish international, is Jack Taylor.
What a goal as well.
Midfielder.
What a goal.
There was hype around him at Peterborough because they bought him on the cheap from Barnet, and as they do, they sell him on for profit, as they do. But Dara McAntony talked about him saying he couldn't believe he kept on to this player for as long as they did. He did obviously have an injury with them, so he was out for about 12 months with that. I think it was like a ligament issue. But yeah, he knew he was going to be destined for bigger things, and it does feel like he will be on to bigger things. But yeah, I forgot about the likes of Brandon Williams. He has ended up at Ipswich. So yeah, all I would say is Kieran McKenna definitely going to be on the lips of maybe chairman if they decide to pull the trigger on their managers, in particular the Premier League. It wouldn't be a bad shout if Sheffield United decided to take a gamble on him, given what he's done with Ipswich and transformed their fortunes. Because don't forget, they were struggling in League One for the best part of 2 seasons prior to his appointment. So the fact that he's managed to transform them, get them playing attractive football, Rory. And you know what? I mean, it could be this season's too soon for Ipswich, but they are building on something. You get the sense, and I think Ipswich fans would be gutted if he did move on. But yeah, it's destined that he's definitely going to be a big name in the future.
Well, United fans will be gutted because he was a coach there alongside Michael Carrick, and they let him go. But they were playing some beautiful football, some genuinely really nice passages of play, really quick, those triangles, just really attractive, attacking football. And the Arsenal fan within me, because I was quite annoyed that he went to Chelsea, the fact that his agent gave him the worst possible career advice. But Amari Hutchinson getting a goal here on loan from Chelsea. I said it when he signed for Chelsea. I said he'll be on loan in the Championship within a year. He is, but I'm glad it's going well. He's a super exciting player, really quick, really nice finish from him. So I was happy to see him do well. For Wolves, I think this is just a massive lapse in concentration. Obviously, their focus this season isn't on the Carabao Cup, but you'd still be disappointed to be 2-0 off and to throw a game away. I think Gary O'Neill is going to be pretty angry with that one. But congratulations, Ipswich. Unbelievable. Love the story. Massive club that deserve to be in the Championship, if not higher for a bit. Good. We're going to move on to another miracle happened. Everton showed a little bit of consistency. 2 games. Does 2 games count as consistency?
I think so. We'll give them this one. Nearly consistency. And I think that's where they started off that form, right, Rory? Because they got that win against Doncaster, and it's been kind of transpired and transferred
been non-stop
across.
Fun ever since.
Yeah, exactly. So, that better effect, shall we call it the better effects, has really worked wisdom on them. So, yes, let's see how long it goes for. And I have my doubts, but let's see how long it lasts.
A very disappointing performance from Aston Villa, although the second half they really did push. Really should have got an equaliser, but Everton were the much better team in the first half. And I think overall probably deserved it. So they'll be disappointed. Emery's a cup manager. I think Villa fans were kind of quietly keeping their eye on the cups. I'll be disappointed to go out in this one. Maybe it's the fault of the shirts. The player have been complaining about the shirts, right? Maybe it's all down to the shirts. But Everton continue on in the cup. Newcastle 1, Manchester City 0. The Oil Classico goes to the northeast. Alexander Isak with a tap-in at the far post. The neighbours are pissed off. With a tap-in at the far post. And you've knocked me off my train of thought. All right. Tina Livramento was absolutely outstanding in this game. Pep was moaning after the game about being knocked out. Do you think he wanted the quadruple? It's those pricks next door.
I think he definitely does want a bit more success. Probably just wanted to make sure he maximised. And I think he always sees this as the opportunity to have their first kind of title on the board, Rory. But yeah.
So there's drama kicking off in
yes,
the
the
house.
drama kicking off behind is more eventful than my commentary here. But
sorry.
it is... all I would say is Pep's gutted because I think he sees this as an opportunity to get the first title of the season out of the way. And obviously, you look at the teams left in the competition, this is a big opportunity. I know there was a few posts today speculating that Spurs must be gutted that they actually went out as early as they did, because this could have been a nice, easy one for the one. But Rory, we move on.
For Newcastle, it's incredible. And of course, the post-game picture, Jason Tyndall was bang in the middle. Absolutely just textbook stuff. And finally, I'm going to lower my voice a little bit. Although it's an Airbnb next door, I'm not going to lose my temper. It's fine. Arsenal beat Brentford 1-0 away. Arsenal rode their luck at times. Aaron Ramsdale made an incredible save. And managed to wind up the Brentford fans as well. Some things never change. Jakub Kivior making an incredible block on the line, showing some great defensive work alongside Tomiyasu and Reece Nelson. I just think to say, every time he plays for Arsenal, every time he gets minutes, he affects the game. He does something. A really super cool, calm finish from him. Very, very impressed. And Sago Jr. made his debut for Arsenal at the age of, I want to say 17, 18. And it was beautiful at the end. Erdegaard pushing him to the away fans so he can get his applause. Just an overall very nice night. But I think Brentford will feel slightly unlucky, as they did have a lot of chances. But you can still see they're missing Ivan Toney massively.
Yeah, clearly.
I think Wissa and Umbuemo are great players. They just don't have that consistency in front of goal.
Are you surprised they're being linked with Patterson Daka as potentially a replacement for Ivan Toney? But
I think he's their kind of player. He's definitely their kind of player. Like, I think the underlying statistics are probably very good for him, but I think at Leicester, he never really got a proper chance. It felt like he was always just expected to come off the bench and affect games. And I don't know if he gets solid runs in a team being the starting striker. There's no doubt he's a talented player. At Salzburg, he was fantastic. So I think... it doesn't surprise me. It could be an interesting one.
Yeah, I just don't know if he's the consistent goal-scoring threat that you kind of expect. I would have thought Brentford's philosophy, go into the Championship, go and get your next bright spark there, potentially. That's my thoughts on that.
Yeah. Well, we will see. That is the Carabao Cup roundup. I'm going to go round to the neighbours with a lump hammer, and after this, we will come back for the Mastermind quiz. And with the tension adequately set and me whispering because the police are going to be arriving soon, we are ready to do the Mastermind quiz. Adam, I'm going to hand the hosting duties over to you so I can remain silent.
Well, I definitely did not see the item in question that bludgeons your neighbour. So, Rory, we have got the choice of Italian clubs in Champions League. This includes qualifying rounds and the history of Italian clubs in the Champions League, or your favourite being football nicknames in the UK. So, which would you like to dabble in for this quiz?
How brave am I feeling today? Sod it, let's do Italian clubs in the Champions League.
Fair enough.
Let's see how we do.
I am going to set the timer to 1 minute. And Rory, we will start this in 3, 2, 1. Which club has participated in the Champions League the most times with 22 occasions?
Milan.
Incorrect. Chievo Verona appeared in the 2006-2007 qualifying third round, losing to which Bulgarian side?
CSK Sofia.
Incorrect. Which Italian player is the highest scorer in the Champions League for Italian clubs with 46 goals in 81 appearances?
Del Piero?
Incorrect. Which Italian team recorded their first ever win of the Champions League?
Juventus.
Incorrect.
Oh my God.
Which Italian team has lost the most Champions League finals?
Juventus.
Correct. Which Italian is the oldest player to play in the Champions League, playing for Lazio against Real Madrid in 2007? And we have got time, but I will let you do that question. So I'll read that question again. Which Italian is the oldest player to play in the Champions League, playing for Lazio against Real Madrid in 2007?
2007. See, I was going to say the first name that came to my mind was Totti, but obviously it's not Totti. So, I'm drawing a complete blank. Only Miroslav Klose is coming to mind, but I know he's not Italian. I don't know. You're going to have to tell me.
It is Marco Balletti. He was 43 years old.
Never getting that.
Totti was one of the other questions, I have to admit. But yeah, let me go through the ones that you couldn't really answer. So you had got a grand total of 1, Rory, so well done. Because, yeah, I did try and make these hard, but yeah. Which club participated in the most Champions League since its fruition? And that was Juventus on 22 occasions. Chievo Verona appeared in their only kind of chance of qualifying for the Champions League in 2006-2007, but they lost to Levski Sofia over the 2 legs. They drew 2-2 in one of the legs and then lost the other one 3-0, I think it was in total. Which Italian player has the highest, or is the highest scorer in the Champions League with 46 goals in 81 games? Now, you said Del Piero, if I remember rightly.
Inzaghi, isn't it?
It is Filippo Inzaghi, believe it or not. So, yes. Do you want to guess where Simeone Inzaghi is in on that list as well? Because he appears.
The most goals by an Italian player?
Yeah.
In the Champions League?
In the Champions League. 10th? No, number 5. Believe it or not. Yeah.
Wow.
Incredible, isn't it? And then we said which Italian team has lost the most appearances. You said Juventus, which was correct. And that was it, if I remember rightly. I think there's no other questions. I have got some other ones. If you want to go through them, we can go through that. Which Italian team recorded... It was this one, actually. I forgot about this, wasn't it? Which Italian team recorded the first ever win of the Champions League? It was Milan. That was the one that I forgot to ask you. The other questions was Patrick Kluivert was the youngest scorer in the Champions League final against which Italian side?
Milan.
It was, correct.
Yeah.
Who is the oldest scorer in the Champions League final?
Oh, a Champions League final. Bo? No idea.
Paolo Maldini.
Paolo Maldini, of course.
Liverpool, if you remember.
Yeah.
The other question was, who is recorded as the oldest player in the Champions League history scoring against CSKA Moscow in 2014?
Totti.
You're correct. Francesco Totti for Roma. And then my other question was, Sampdoria's only time in the Champions League ended up in a defeat final, appeared in the 91-92 season against which side?
Barcelona.
Correct.
Yeah.
It was Koeman after extra time at Wembley that time.
That was when they should have won it all, Sampdoria. That was Vialli and...
That was the days where they were supreme that season. Yeah. Absolutely supreme. But Rory, well done. You have got one. Let's put it against my record. I've only got one out of all of the ones. You still rinsed me on that Crew Alexandra round. So,
I'm patting myself on the back about that one. But guys, thank you for joining us. I do need to go because I'm getting worried. So thank you for joining us. As always, you can find us on Twitter at Italian Anglo Pod, on Instagram at Anglo-Italian Pod, on TikTok at Anglo-Italian Pod. Mm-hmm. You can join us on Monday evenings from 8:30 UK time, 9:30 Central European time for our live streams reviewing all the weekend's action. We would love to see you there. It'll be on YouTube, on Twitter, all sorts of places. Adam, anything to say before I send these lovely people off to enjoy the rest of their weekend?
No, enjoy. There's going to be some good games. We didn't get the chance to go through it, but I'm sure we'll put it on the social. So please keep a note of all the games across the Premier League and Serie A.
Beautiful. And we are ending with a quote about yours and our favourite Italian manager, Roberto De Zerbi, courtesy of Adam Lallana. The manager I don't know how he does it. The prep for every game. He will have his Italian coaches around his house, the chef cooking food, watching games. It's his life. His family are in Italy and he sacrifices so much. He puts everything into it. It is not luck, I will tell you that. He is obsessed. Puffing on those cigarettes, no wonder. He's a different breed. We love you, Roberto, and we love you guys. We will see you next time.
Ciao, ciao.